Self-directed IRAs are an amazing tool to help you save on taxes with your real estate deals, but not a lot of investors know what they are and certainly not how to use them. But that's what we're talking about today on the Sub2Deals Show. Hey, Sub2ers, welcome to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will talk about something different, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. If you're listening to our podcast on Apple or Stitcher or Google Podcasts or any of those other podcast platforms, we'd like to invite you to check out our channel on YouTube. Go to sub2tv.com. We do podcasts there. We have our Facebook Live every week, Goat Talk, and we also release a new video just about every single day to help you with your real estate investing business. That's sub2tv.com. If you're looking for the most affordable real estate creative finance coaching on the planet, we'd also like to invite you to take a look at $7coaching.com. I answer your questions personally each and every week. We've got tons of information in there and hundreds of other investors who are active investors that buy houses each and every day. So get over to $7coaching.com. And if you're looking for premium coaching, we have a Sub2Max.com. We do 3 live masterminds each and every year, in addition to top shelf training and weekly coaching calls. So check out Sub2Max.com. Guys, today we're going to talk about some advanced real estate training, self-directed Roth IRAs. A lot of investors, and we talked about this at our last Sub2Max Mastermind last month, that most investors, when they get started, they're just so anxious to make money that they don't even think about things like taxes or things like that. They need to learn how to invest first. And then once they get that down, they need to start thinking about things like giving, Uncle Sam 40% of the income that they generate through investing. So today we have an IRA expert here to talk with us, finance, creative finance, just all around investor, Mr. Walter Wofford from Jackson, Mississippi. Hey, Walter, good to see you.
Thank you, William. Glad to be here once again.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Walter was kind enough to come to our last mastermind and share his extensive experience with us with our mastermind students. Man, they were all super excited about it. We had a fabulous time. He and his wife came down, and we had a lot of fun. So we said, hey, I've got to have you on the podcast to help teach a bunch of other people about IRAs and investing. So we're real excited to have you. Walter, tell everybody about you and your investing and just what you do.
All right, William. Well, I got to make one comment about your weekend deal. The highlight was when the bear came out right up to the folks in the hot tub. So that was in Gatlinburg. That was a very exciting time, apparently.
Oh yeah. We found out it's every man for himself when you're out in the hot tub and the bear shows up. That's for sure.
But the bear came every day, didn't he?
We saw a bear at least once every day we were there. We had this thing. We rented a lodge there, a huge lodge, about 15 bedrooms, I think, and we had all these. There was about 30 of us there, I think, and we had an amazing time. But yeah, from day one, we were there about 2 hours before the first bear showed up. I thought that was hype, on all the reviews. Yeah, and the bear showed up and all this stuff. But no, we saw bears each and every day there. It was amazing.
Well, it was wonderful. It was a great environment, and your people are great folks to be around because they're life learners, and that's what it takes to engage the world of retirement accounts. Right. You got to learn and keep learning about it. So I'm an investor in Jackson, Mississippi. Been doing this for 42 years, older than some of you youngsters on the call.
Right.
And I suspect I made more mistakes than anybody you'll ever meet. You know, because when you're doing deals, a lot of deals, you just find out because the problem with the good side and the bad side of the real estate investing is you have to make instantaneous decisions based on limited information that have consequences. So you never know enough about anything that you buy. And it could be even who's your next door neighbor. Do they have a yappy dog in there that keeps people up? So you just don't have all the information, but you got to make a decision, right?
Right.
And so go boldly, make offers. That's what we do. And I still do that. And so I got interested. Somebody introduced me to IRA investing in 1998. That's when the Roths came out.
Right.
And so traditional IRAs had been around since 78. So traditional IRA is you get a tax deduction when you contribute. It grows tax deferred over the years. And then when you take it out after 59 and a half, then you're taxed on it. That's a traditional. And so that was what many people got into. But then the Roths came around in 98. And so you didn't get a deduction when you made a contribution. It still grew tax deferred. And when you take it out, if you meet the two requirements, you got to be at least 59 and a half, and the account had to be open for 5 years. Then you can take it out tax-free. Well, see, that's perfect for real estate investors. Perfect. One thing that I find that many real estate investors don't consider when they get in the deal is what is it going to cost them to exit the deal?
Right.
So we want to load up, buy all this stuff, and then you don't really realize that the tax man is going to get recapture on depreciation at 25%.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that. All those tax deductions that you took over the years, you're going to get to give them back when you sell it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know that's when everybody talks about rental property and depreciation. No one ever talks about recapture, you know. So unless you're going to keep it forever, there's really no way to avoid that. I mean, yeah, you got to die. I mean, that's how you escape, you know.
Well, you do, but your heirs don't.
Right.
Down the road. But still, I'm really, since I'm 69, both me and my wife, I'm really interested in the exit because that's when you got to pay the piper.
Yeah.
When you're buying things outside of your IRA, if you're buying things inside your IRA, you don't get all the deductions that you would get, interest expense and all that, but you do get to avoid taxes on the sale.
Right.
Now, is that important? And you also, if you're buying property, rental property with your IRA, either individually or you can borrow money or you can do a joint venture, that income that you take in is tax-free. It goes back to your IRA and it accumulates until that point in time when you take it out.
Right. Okay. All right. So in your opinion, why should you engage in IRA investing?
Well, I get to use the skills that I have learned over the last 42 years to enhance my retirement account. I can't do that with the stock market. I don't control the stock market. All you can do is buy and sell, but you can really enhance returns if you've got the skill to do it. And so there are a lot of reasons why you'd want to do this. One, it's a funding source for you. That's number one reason is because if you go to any of the custodians and ask them how much of their book of business, their assets is sitting in their account in cash. Have you ever asked a custodian that?
No.
It's about a third sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
A third. And so it's one thing for you to know how to make investment income. It's another thing to engage it and manage it. And that's what you can do with self-directed IRAs. So just so you know, it's not just IRAs. You can self-direct, meaning you make the decisions on what you invested in. Okay. So traditional and Roth, we've already talked about that.
Mhm.
And then the older accounts, the older retirement, the simple and the SEP, you don't see them too much anymore. But also the 401k, you can have a solo K to self-directed.
Right.
But the two specialty accounts that I always like to mention, particularly to high income people, like a doctor or a lawyer, they don't need any more income.
Right.
They don't need any more taxable income.
Right.
So the two specialty accounts, one is the education savings account for their kids or grandkids that you can open them up. Anybody can get one of these up until their age 18, and you can self-direct that. Okay. So the only thing it does is you got to have the skill to generate investment income. And I'll just tell you what I did in that, since we're talking about Coverdale's. I gifted my daughter $2,000 when she was going to Ithaca College. That's many years ago. She's 36 today. And I had everything going for me. She got accepted. She's ready to go. Everything was great, except I didn't have the money to pay for the tuition. Everything else was great. So I had to get busy and figure out what to do. So I had her education savings account to sign as a buyer of a contract and got it under contract. And then I coached her how to sell the contract, and we sold it for $15,000.
Okay.
And so the money went back from the $15,000 assignment fee, went back into her education savings account, and it sent it off to the school and paid for that.
Right.
So it's a really a good thing, because all you high income people that don't need any more income, but you got to send your kids to private school and ultimately to college and grad school and med school and all that stuff. You just don't have to pay the taxes. The series goes like this. You make money, you pay the taxes, and you spend it on what you want to spend it on. With that education savings account, you make the money and just spend it on education.
Right. So basically, her education account wholesaled a contract.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so 15 went out, didn't hit my tax return. And so that's one of the accounts, the education. And the other one that is very important is the health savings account. If you have a high deductible policy, then you can contribute $5,000 or $6,000 per year, and you get a deduction for that.
Right.
And then you can take that money and you can go buy real estate. You can do all sorts of things with it. And if you got to open it before you're 65. Okay.
So
can't open after that.
Okay. So maybe this is new. I know you and I have talked several times, but this is new for me. So are you saying that you can do real estate deals in your health savings account?
I do them all the time.
Okay. So if I were to open a health savings account,
Are you 65 yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
You and Jody need to open one up then. Go open.
Well, she's over there clicking right now. She's probably doing it right this minute. I'm telling you, she is the queen of just do it and we'll figure it out. But
well, I was in the hospital earlier in the year, and this young doctor came in, a hospitalist who's basically own staff doctor to take care of all the patients. And he knew I was in real estate. So he was sitting in a bedside manner. He wasn't telling me what was wrong with me. He wanted to know about real estate. And he owns a couple of properties. And I realized that a guy like that, he doesn't need more taxable income. What he needs is a vehicle that he can use for paying for his kids' education or his future health savings account.
Right.
And his Roth IRA. So that's what high income people need to get a Roth. They need to get education savings if you got kids, and a health savings account. And then if you have elderly folks in your family or somebody who is sick, and you arrange for them to leave you some of their Roth IRA, the inherited rules are tremendous, because you don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half to deploy the money. If you inherit it, you can do it at your age.
Mm-hmm. So if I understand, an inherited Roth IRA, if I'm 30 years old and I inherit one, I can start doing deals in it right now, and everything's tax free, and I can access the money right now.
Yeah, and so a couple of years ago, they changed the rules. It used to be if you inherited one, you could take it out over your actuarial lifetime. Now they limit it to 10 years.
Right.
You got to fully deplete it, but there are 5 exceptions to that. And where I had somebody call me the other day who's got a medically challenged 8-year-old son. He's got Down syndrome. Well, he's medically disabled. And so if he got a inherited Roth IRA at his age at 8, his dad can go do all the deal making. The money comes back and he can take it out over the remainder of his life. So let me say it again. You make the money, you don't have to pay the tax on it, but you use it for what you need to use it for.
Right.
It just cut the tax man out by their own rules. There's nothing secret about that.
Right. Sure. And what you're saying is it doesn't even hit anyone's tax return. It's straight in that retirement account. Nobody has to claim anything.
Well, when it ultimately does take it, but what you get is a form of a 1099 that says it's not taxable.
Right. Okay. Now let's go back. A minute ago, you were talking about high income earners, and one of the things I hear people say a lot is, well, I make too much money to get a Roth IRA. Now, what's the solution for that?
Yeah, there's a limit. If you make too much, either individually or joint filing, and it's a joint, it's in the 200 number. Well, so that just means you can't take the direct route for getting a Roth. You would go through the backdoor Roth, and you can Google that backdoor Roth, and what that means is you can open up a traditional IRA because they don't have the income limits. And let's say you got a $7,500 contribution you can make. Then you make the contribution in your traditional and then immediately convert it to a Roth, which is a taxable event. So you pay about 30% or so on that $7,500, but you pay it one time. And now you got a tax-free account.
Right. Okay. And something, that I heard in the last couple of weeks between talking to you and some of the other students that are already using Roth IRAs is, I've heard more than once, well, you can open one with $200 or $300 and you never have to make another contribution.
That's if you got the skill to use them. And
right.
So what I would do is, just going back to the example of my daughter education savings account. Well, I'll tell you what I would do if I had, let's say I had $200 in an account. I'd get me 4 checks written for $50 a piece, and I'd take a short-term option agreement to the local RIA. And when somebody says, I got this house for sale, I said, I want an option. I'll pay you $50 for it. And in that meeting, you go get 4 of them tied up, and one of them will turn out worth having.
Right. Well, there you go. And that's and another example that we actually talked about earlier was just getting a house under contract for a flip for $100, and then I guess bringing in. I can think of one example that I could have used, and you tell me, could I have done this in my Roth IRA? Jody and I got a house under contract. Okay, well that's easy enough. But this is sick. It really is. That if we had done this deal in our Roth, we got a house under contract about 4 months ago for $40,000, and this was a flip. We didn't have anybody to do rehabs. We hadn't been here that long at the time, but we got a house under contract and listed it for sale and closed it within 2 weeks of getting it under contract. We bought it for 40. We sold it for 151. We would have put $100,000 after realtor fees and everything else in our IRA if we'd done that.
Are you kicking yourself?
Oh man, that's sick, because $100,000, you're going to give the tax man $40,000 of that money. And
so you'll never get that back.
You'll never get that back.
Or what it would earn.
Right. That's correct. But if you'd had in that scenario, if we had a Roth IRA that just had $200 in it, we could have put $100 in earnest money down, borrowed the 40 to fund it because it was a simultaneous close, borrowed the 40 to fund it for 30 minutes, and paid somebody handsomely for that and still put all of that money in an IRA. That's just
Yeah,
insane.
so you can borrow money with your IRA, no problem doing that. It's got to be non-recourse to the IRA
Right.
owner. Now, there are other rules where it may cause some taxability if you do that. What I would suggest, this would have been, so if you're going to borrow it, why don't you borrow it from an IRA and not borrow it, but do a joint venture? Say, all right, so your $40,000 joint venture partner, you take your 200, add it to his 40, and you buy it in an entity, right? You're going to buy it. So now you own it and they own a share, you own a share. The good thing about it is profits can be disproportionately allocated, meaning not based on what you have contributed. But let's just say the 40 guy puts it up and you put up 100 or 200, and you say he's going to get 10% of the profit and you're going to get 90% of the profit.
Yeah. Just whatever you agree. Oh yeah. I mean, so all you know, if you've got financial friends, a network of people that have IRAs that they also need to do things with from time to time, then that would be the way to do it.
Well, going back to why should you engage the world of IRAs? Because money is sitting on the sidelines and it's a funding source for you. But unless you learn the language of retirement account investing, you won't ever get that first person to come alongside of you. Because it does take a little brain damage, as we know. You're going to have to study, aren't you, William?
Oh yeah, for sure. I know you've given us tons of information to study since we met you. Order this book, watch these videos for sure. You know, Jody's over there on the couch the other night with her phone watching videos. So yeah, we're trying to get caught up on it, and we're a little bit late to the party. So as far as resources, Walter, I know that you shared with us a new training course that you have that people can learn more about at impactinvested.com. Tell everybody about that and what's included in that and how it works.
Well, William, so I've been since 98, I've been trying to get people to engage in this IRA world, but if they don't have a way to plug it in, then they're not going to do it. If they don't have, and the same thing's true about trust, using title holding trust. If you don't have a mechanism to do it, you won't do it. So I've been doing some form of this impact investing all my whole career, seller financing to tenants, helping them become homeowners. The twist is that when you buy it, you need to buy it with your IRA. And the reason you do that, so we have a period of time that we buy them, fix them up, vet the potential homeowner, and then they got to rent a short-term 6 months to make sure it's a fit for them. They're a fit for us. And then we give them a deed and they sign a note and deed of trust back. So since we bought them with our retirement account, that's not a taxable transaction. I wouldn't do this model if I had to pay taxes every time I did it. Because a lot of people don't realize that when you buy, let's just pick some numbers. If you bought a house for 50 and you sold it for 100 with financing, then that's a $50,000 taxable event, and you don't have enough money to pay the taxes from the deal. And it might be 30 or 40% of the profit. So you may owe $20,000 in taxes on that one transaction. And so a lot of people don't. So when you finance it, the IRS looks at it as if you received the cash. A lot of people don't know that. They find that out when they file their taxes.
Dealer status.
All right. So what we do here in Jackson is I figured I'm in my last quarter. I don't know what quarter you're in, William, but you're in some quarter. And I wanted to see if I could make a difference in my community by helping tenants become homeowners. We got way too many rentals in our town. And renters don't make good neighbors. They don't make good community. I mean, you can drive down the road and you can tell which ones are rentals a lot of times, can't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we talk about that all the time in investing. Once a neighborhood becomes majority rental, the properties aren't as desirable, the values aren't there. It's apparent. The pride of ownership is
So
not
what
there.
we do is, in our market, we have high rents to the investment. So it's not at all unusual to have a $40,000 all in and a 3.1.5 that a market rents $1,000.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty common. So
Yeah.
what we do is we require them to have some skin in the game. They got to have at least $5,000, and we qualify them for Dodd-Frank standards.
Mhm.
And then their payment, taxes, insurance, principal, and interest, instead of the $1,000 a month, they usually come in around $675 to
Right.
$700. So we're helping them lock in their housing costs for the next 20 or 30 years
Right.
by doing that.
Well,
It's
that
a good
sounds good.
model, but it's really good for these IRAs because we're creating this passive tax-free mailbox money that's going to
Right.
last me past my last quarter.
Right.
That's the goal.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what this training course teaches, how to do this.
Man, it's so much. It is a step-by-step manual. I don't know. Did you look at it, William? Did you take time to look at it? It's 300 pages.
It's 300 pages. There's no way, but I glanced through it. I saw the things that it includes. I mean, it's like an A to Z, how to use your IRA, how to structure these deals. I mean, it's a win for everybody, really. It's pretty amazing.
Well, it also at the end of it, I included some estate documents that I used.
Right.
I'm not practicing law or giving advice, but I'm just showing you what I did.
Right.
And so the will, the health directive, durable power of attorney,
Right.
everybody needs to have that. And we're going to talk about that in a future episode.
Yeah. Right.
And then for the real estate investor, the living trust is a very good vehicle for you to manage the stuff in the event that you're incapacitated. And I've been incapacitated before. I know what that's like.
Right.
Where you can't think straight.
Sure.
COVID did that to me.
Right. Well, I think we discovered that even at the mastermind. I mean, you've got some higher level people there that do deals, that make money, and a surprising number of people just aren't prepared for something bad to happen. They would leave behind a mess for everybody that had to try to deal with it.
I did, except I didn't leave.
Right.
I recovered. And a lot of people recover from incapacity, but it was a trail of a mess.
For sure. Okay. All right. Well, Walter, let's talk, about a couple of examples. You want to talk about a couple of examples of deals that you could do in the IRA? Okay. We're going to bring up this thing. I'm going to let you tell everybody about it and how it works.
All right. So I've been a wholesaler for years. And in our market, when I started, that's a $20,000 house.
That's amazing.
You can still buy those today, believe it or not. So let's go to the next slide and you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. So, 98 Roths were created. So what I would do is I'd buy it for 20 and sell it, mark it up $2,500. And I did 2 a week for 10 consecutive years. Now, how many is that? That's 1,200. So I'm just using the example that we do 1 a week where I generated $2,500 profit. Get it? We buy houses on the cars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Crazy Wiley Buys Houses was my best ever. They call me up. Crazy there? Yeah, you got crazy. Anyway, so look at what kind of taxable income I was creating. So how much is that? 50 times 250. Well, that sounds like about 125,000, doesn't it?
Okay. Yep.
Is that my math?
That
So
sounds right.
I'm creating 125,000 in taxable income because I'm buying and selling. It was a business.
Right.
Well, not only that, if it's a business, then that needs to be filed on your Schedule C, which is subject to self-employment tax. So basically, you add another 15.3 in state and federal, and you all of a sudden you're up above 40%, maybe even 50%.
Yeah, you're
that I would
50 plus, yeah.
So that income, that was short-term capital gain is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see using that model, and I've said this before, William, you got to know how to create an investment income, and that was it. That was just a turn. And so go to the next slide. So I got to thinking, how could I do that better? So I said, well, let me just go ahead and finance it. I could make double my profit if I sold it for 25 instead of 22.5, 10% interest accruing for 4 months. So can you see how financing, and of course you preach that all the time, adds value to your deal?
Oh yeah.
Does it?
Oh,
sure
for
does.
sure. Yeah.
So now I've doubled I've gone to 5,000 times 50. That's 250,000 of income. I was going backwards in the tax arena. Because you remember I told you when you finance it, it's just as if you received the cash. Right. And so that is still that short-term capital gain. And so you can see how much I owed, a whole bunch more. So the next slide. So I said, well, you know what? Why don't I sell the note? And so I needed to do that because I was doing too many of these deals. And I sold them to Roth IRAs for a $500 discount, but I earned 4 months worth of interest, whether it went 4 months. A lot of times I went a week and they just turn them. It's a very active market. So I reduced my taxable income, but I still had short-term capital gain. So next slide. That didn't help me from a tax standpoint. So I said, well, wait a minute. How about if I took my IRA and bought that house and then seller financed it? That would not have any taxable income, right? Yep. Now, if you do a bunch of them, then you got another possible tax for operating a business, but that's just one way. Can you think of another way that I could have done that deal using an IRA? Anything come to mind?
Not for me.
Well, let me give you a hint. When you get it under contract and you have a contingency in there, isn't that an option?
It is.
It's an option that I'm going to buy it or not. So how about I take my $200 and say, here's my, I'm going to buy an option rather than sign a contract. And this option gives me time to go market it. So again, I could sell the contract. So the option would be held by my retirement account, right? Gotcha. And so when I sell the option, it goes back in the retirement account. How much taxes did I owe?
0.
All right, that's possibility number 2. What else could I have done? The same thing that we talked about earlier, to go in together, joint venture, 2 people form an entity, 2 IRAs form an entity, disproportionately allocate the profit. And I could have done the same thing as a joint venture without borrowing any money. And both, if 2 IRAs own it and we sell it, that's not a taxable event. You actually own it.
Yep.
Okay, we can go on and on and on, but that you got the idea?
Oh, sure. Yeah, a lot of possibilities, a lot of ways to take it down for sure.
Next slide.
Okay.
So here is one that I really needed to listen to my own recordings. You ever gone back and said, didn't I teach about this?
I bought this house all the time. I say, did I really say that? That sounded smart at the time. Why didn't I do it?
All right. So about 6 years ago, I bought this house. It was on a main street, and it was a 1,700, 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I bought it for $50 at the time. I thought I was paying too much. Have you ever thought you paid too much for a house, William?
You bet.
Like 100% of the time.
I'm telling you, if they don't go no to the offer, I always think I paid too much.
If you're not embarrassed by your offer, you're
Oh, yes.
paying the offer too much.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to selling it, same thing's true when you're selling a property. You ever sell it for enough? No, anyway, I bought this and I rented it for years to college students, $1,500 a month. And what I did is it was a $50,000 purchase, and basically I borrowed $50,000,
Right.
formed a trust, borrowed the 50, and lo and behold, our market changed, and they came in and improved the neighborhood, improved a lot that had nothing to do with me. It just drove the value up. And I told my number 2 son, both of my sons were realtors, brokers. I said, let's go see what the market will bear. And so we sold it for 148. Okay. So assuming some recapture in there, that's going to be $100,000 taxable event, this one house. All right, so I created $100,000 in long-term capital gain, but still I'm going to owe 25% on the recapture, and then I'll owe state and federal for 30 or so. So basically I had to give up about $30,000 in taxes because I didn't do that in an IRA. I could have easily done that in IRA.
Right.
That's the point I'm trying to make is you form a trust, you're the beneficiary. You form a trust, your IRA is the beneficiary. It's the same transaction.
Right.
It's a decision that you got to make that I'm going to do this in my IRA, and I just did not make that decision at that point.
Right.
Shame on me, huh?
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, because you just made me think of something. If you buy a house and you don't buy it in your IRA, is there any time that you could go back and correct that during that year? Or no? I mean, you have to do it right out of the gate.
You are not your IRA.
Right.
You can't sell something to your IRA. You personally can't loan your IRA money to yourself or to anybody who's related to you.
Right.
That'd be great. That'd be what we call home cooking, but the rules don't allow for it.
Right. Okay. So when you sit down with that seller and write that contract up, it has to be written up with the IRA as the buyer.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I included this slide that when I went through this with your group. Can you go to the next one?
Sure.
So when I'm buying with seller financing, can you pull it up? It's not up yet. No, go back down. Oh yeah, go one more past that. All right, so yeah, you got it right. 7 must have when I'm negotiating provisions, and so go a little bit to the next slide. And this is what I always want to get when I'm buying with seller financing. And so this will answer your question on how we do this. So I usually give enough down payment to get their attention. So I'm not coming in light on the down payment. I'm coming in heavy. Sometimes I've on my personal residence where I'm right now, I put a third down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not a light down payment. That gets somebody's attention. But I had negotiated below market interest rate seller financing. It was at 3%. Mm-hmm. The payments the house and occupant can afford, that's very important. I get to structure that choice of entity. And of course, it's got to be non-recourse, because if I bought it with my IRA, which I didn't, but if I did, it's got to be non-recourse, meaning that the property is the sole collateral. They can't come after me personally. Right. Moratorium on payments, that means that I'm going to buy it today, but I don't start payments until 4 months in advance. And then the first right of refusal. So since I'm the borrower on the note, if the note holder ever wanted to sell it in the future, then I'm going to let somebody else negotiate it. And I get to come in and decide whether I want to buy it or not. And I've done that several times. It's a good provision to put in there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. So what's your argument for below market interest rates? How do you, when you're talking with a seller and most of us say, well, how much is the seller going to want for interest? How much do you offer? And we say, well, we don't mention interest unless they do. Is that how you do it, or do you do it differently?
Yeah, well, my first offer was 0 interest, so we had
Mhm.
to negotiate that one. But I don't ask them what banks are lending at. That's not the right question. What I ask them is, how much is your money earning you in the bank right now? And at the
Right.
time, it was 1%. So how about I pay you 3 times what the bank pays you?
Okay. So how would you do that today with CDs paying 5%?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use that argument. I'd say, here's my offer. Would you like it or not? Because typically these houses are vacant, right?
Right.
And typically the houses we buy have work that needs to be done. So people
Yeah.
sell for non-financial reasons often.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Here's my offer. Do you like it or not? I like that a lot, actually. So, okay. All right.
Well,
So,
so by the way, so you got to be able to justify each of these points. So I
mhm,
bought a house that was still an Airbnb rental. It was a $240,000 house, and I negotiated each of these points. And each of these points, they didn't. I had to explain why. For example, moratorium on payments. Why can't you start making payments right away? Is because your deferred maintenance that I'm stepping into your shoes. I've got to go fix this thing, and it's going to take me 4 months to fix it.
right.
Oh, okay, I got it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
Yep.
all makes sense. And I mean, if they're the first key, I think, is to be sitting across the table from somebody that needs to sell their house. Um,
Well, yeah, if they don't need to sell it, you're wasting your time.
right. Right. That's really the first qualifier, a seller with some motivation. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times it's not financial. The example I gave earlier, we bought that house for 40,000, which was obviously a good bit below what it was worth. That lady's motivation was she lived 4 hours away. It was, the grass was starting to grow, and she didn't want to have to drive over every couple of weeks and mow it. And that was worth $100,000 to her, I suppose, to sell it for that price. But she named her price, and we were happy to pay it. But she wasn't hurting for
Well,
money. The house was paid off.
my here's another motivator. High grass. My yard guy texted me today. Said, I killed a snake in your backyard.
Yeah, that's for
You think
sure.
that woman wants to go back and find that snake in her backyard?
I don't think so. Not at all. All right. So obviously, from this discussion, everybody needs to have an IRA sooner than later. Um, so tell us again, impactinvested.com. It's really a blueprint on how to sell or finance homes, use your Roth IRA to do it and fund it for you, as well
Using
as
using
using
trust.
trust and estate planning. I mean, you've got this thing all rolled into one. It's sort of like an all-in-one that investors need to go out and make money and not have to give the government everything and still control it and not leave a mess for people if something happens.
Well, one of the things that I spent a lot of time on was designing a closing process template.
Hmm.
What happens? What happens here? Because everything that we buy, we're going to get a home inspection, we're going to get a termite inspection, and that's usually during the 10-day contingency period.
Right.
Then after that, if we go forward with it, then we're going to get an appraisal.
Hmm.
And why do I want an appraisal? For the person I'm selling it to know what it's worth. And also, if I'm going to use a funder, I want them to know what it's worth. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't mean me picking value is no good. It's
Hmm.
I can tell you what I think it is, but how about somebody that really knows that? And so all these things happen, and the payment for those items, they've got to be on the closing statement.
Right.
So all that has to be coordinated, and the funder needs to know when the money needs to show up at the attorney's office. And so I can do all of that with minimal effort on my part.
Right. Okay. All right. So everyone get over, check out impactinvested.com. It sounds like a great course, and it's certainly got a lot of information in it. I'll tell you, we're excited to learn about these Roth IRAs. We may be a little late to the party, but we can still have a good time when we get here. So, Walter,
you can still dance.
That's right. You can still dance even if you're late. So, Walter, we appreciate the heck out of you being here, sharing with you on Roth IRAs. Looking forward to having you on later to talk about some other stuff, estate planning and some other things. So thanks so much for joining us today. So, for sure.
Well, thank you, William.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Walter. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the next episode. We'll talk about trust. All right. Thanks. Okay, guys, that's it for this episode of the Sub2Deals Show. We appreciate you joining us. If you enjoy the podcast, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. It helps other people find the show, and we really appreciate it. So until then, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you do that. And we'll see you on the next episode. Get out there, talk to some sellers, and buy some houses.